The Plane Effect is a puzzle adventure game that's viewed from an isometric perspective in a dystopian world. Whilst its visual effects are absolutely stunning, some of its platforming and puzzle elements leave a little bit to be desired, but the visual effects and the world and the atmosphere that it creates, as well as the overall intrigue of what on earth is going on, carries the experience enough for you to fight some of the issues that the game has. You'll play as Solo, who is working in the office, finishes up for the day and wants to get home to their family. But there's a weird, evil eye in the sky and watching everyone's moves, and essentially doesn't want Solo to get home at all. So, creature after creature, twist after turn, time after time, every time you try to open doors, move into new areas, or get somewhere, the plane effect kicks in, and it will manipulate time and warp you off somewhere else into somewhere that you don't want to be. The idea of these levels is then to find a paper aeroplane that reminds you of your child so that you can anchor yourself back into reality and continue on the journey home. It's a really great concept, and visually it works an absolute treat, especially when it keeps returning you back to your office and it's in various states of weirdness, either with zero gravity, or there's one where the outside has become inside, or there's one with a giant fan in, and so it ends up being do you remember the scene, if you've watched the 80s film Labyrinth, where you've got all of the stairs going all over the shop? There's a little mini level with that all in. It's always inventive with new and interesting ways of displaying the world, the warpedness, and you can clearly tell that this game was created by people who have been involved in visual effects for quite some time, because they're showcasing and waxing and waning on their skills here. Puzzles are quite varied as you move from place to place. A lot of them will involve around trying to survey your area and work out what you can actually interact with, because a lot of things look like they are interactable, but they aren't. And so once you work out what your next port of call is, the plane effect works in puzzles that you need to go somewhere to find out you can't do it, and then go back and pick up the thing and take it back to where you need it to be. So, for instance, you might see that there's an oil can in front of you, but you can't pick it up until you've gone to the cogs to see that they can't be moved, and then you can go and get the oil can and bring it back to the cogs. So there's very much a train of thought that you need to follow through the plane effect to make sure that the puzzles work. And that sometimes trips you up, because you'll see things, you're like, I know I need to do something with this, but you need to trigger it in the right order to make it happen. And in that way, it reminds me very much of an old school point and click adventure game, and its logic and the way how puzzles come together emulate that in a way. I think this will be Marmite for some people who want to kind of go in and speed through. But what I would say to that is that the plane effect, instead of it being a massively challenging puzzle game, offers 3 different difficulties. One just gives you no UI whatsoever, and you just experience the world around you in the cleanest fashion possible. Normal mode does highlight these things, but gives you no clues on what you need to do and where you need to go. And then there's a guided mode that if you press and hold left bumper, it will then point out a little white arrow for where you need to go next, and it will point you towards the next thing to pick up, the next checkpoint, the exit, that kind of thing. And so when I felt like I was getting a bit confused with some of the puzzles, because I didn't think they were difficult, but sometimes it was difficult to choreograph in what order they wanted you to do things, I basically reverted back to guide options so that I could then enjoy and immerse myself in the world and the story and the atmosphere, so that I could kind of go uninterrupted. This also transpires over to the platforming aspects of the game as well. Because it's isometric, and Solo is quite woolly in the way how he handles, especially when it comes to jumping. I found that the jumping specifically in this game was a little bit all over the place and quite difficult to know where to land. Jumping barely comes into the first half of the game at all. It's only in the second half, and where you've got weird narrow mazes, or you need to follow certain paths that spiral round. Some of the views of what you're trying to jump to are obscured, I'm assuming on purpose, but it makes for an annoying platforming experience. But as you try and do some of the precision stuff, especially when it's timed, which doesn't happen too often but does pop up on occasion, you will get frustrated with missing jumps that you think you should have done, or Solo just walking off the edge of something when you're like, I pressed jump. So yeah, I found that a little bit woolly. Thankfully, platforming is the least of your concerns in the plane effect. It is much more around working out what to press where next in the chain so that you can make the puzzles work. Visually, the game is stunning. Audibly, there's like a weird mishmash of ambient, like found sounds and like soundscapes, all kind of mashed together in a weird and wonderful collage. I really liked it. It reminded me a little bit of Silent Hill 4, where you had like that dense, foggy, electric keyboard, like mini post-rock feel, but really ambient, not post-rock. So it really adds to the experience, and it gives it this oppressed depth to everything that you're doing. Add to that the excellent effects and the kind of confusion of what the story is doing and where you're going, and if you'll ever get home, it draws you in. And I was surprised that I was so drawn into a game that I felt like I had to fight sometimes to actually progress on. I did run into 2 bugs on 2 separate occasions in the game, and this was around death sequences. So there are specific switches in certain areas which you need to flick so that you can make the path in front of you crossable. And what I would do is flick the switch and it would seemingly be crossable, but when I touched it I would die. On these occasions I used to have to exit out the game, reload my save, come back in, and it would be fine. But because it happened a couple of times, hopefully that will be fixed for everyone else when it launches tomorrow. Although I sound a little bit tepid on the plane effect, actually I really did enjoy it. It was a good experience. It was much more around me dissecting visual effects and ideas and wanting to read more into the subtext of things. So I think if you like that as a gamer, you'll have plenty of fun to be had here. And if you enjoy those dark, dystopian, claustrophobic and oppressive world environments where everything feels dense and thick with fog, both mentally, emotionally and gameplay, then I think you'll have a great time with the plane effect too. Those of you who are looking for something that's much more of a walking simulator with that guided run through, I think that will solve most of your worries if you're scared about puzzles being too tricky. The plane effect is out tomorrow on PCs and consoles. A written review will be over on highplanegames.com. If you found this informative, please do give me a like and help me out here on the YouTubes. And hopefully I'll catch you again soon. Bye-bye. Higher Plane Games is part of the Higher Plane Network, a completely independent media outlet supported by people like you. The goal is to create the best possible content that cultivates a richer indie scene for games as well as music and entertainment. To find out more and to get involved, visit patreon.com/higherplane network. Your support makes all the difference, and in return you'll gain access to bonus content and downloads. Thank you for watching.